Had a doctor's appointment. So, hey, welcome everyone. We're talking about lesson 3 in Lead the Field coaching. And we're talking about the law of attraction, which is based on the law of vibration in regard to goal achievement. And I just saw a thing this morning that Wayne Dyer, whom I absolutely adore, I feel such a kindred spirit with him. And I think his story is so amazing. You know, he was raised in foster homes because his mother had to surrender the boys because she just couldn't care for them after his father abandoned them. And what he did with his life and how much he has studied this and all ancient teachings and just so many incredible things. So Wayne said, and Bob has said this famously, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you're in vibrational harmony with. I'll say that again for the people in the back. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you're in vibrational alignment and harmony with. That's all you can attract to yourself. The law of attraction, we live in an attraction-based universe, not assertive. We can't force things to come to us that we are not in vibrational alignment with. That is what sucks for me today. Well, here's the thing, Laura. It does suck for you today because you have a physical presentation of, misery and discomfort. And I'm so sorry. If I was there, I was just thinking, if I were in the valley, I'd bring you some chicken soup for the soul, but actual chicken soup. But the thing that we need to do is disconnect, Joni can do that, is disconnect our senses from the current circumstances, whether it's your bank account, your clients, your relation, situation, in your, like whatever the current circumstances is, pain in my knee, people who are a pain in my neck, we are so fixed on what is, which ironically has been brought to us courtesy of our vibration. So it creates this really tight loop of you get more of what you think about, of more of how you feel about it, more of what you talk about, more of what you complain about, as my Jewish friends say, more of what you kvetch about. It is like praying for what you don't want. So Bob was a stickler, and I think Kathy probably can recall this. I was on a number of calls with him in advanced programs, and so was Kathy, where someone would start out by saying, well, the problem is, or I have a problem with, and Kathy, what would Bob say?
You're the only solution.
Yeah, stop saying that.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop it right there. You keep reifying things. We think we're observing things, we're creating them. So there's this tight loop between how we've been programmed to live in our paradigm. Remember our good friends, the paradigms? We've been programmed via our genetics and our environment and the current environment to think, feel, and behave the way we do. And that's because we have these senses and they're continually inundated with what is, right? But now we know, because we took the Matrix red pill, that the circumstances that we have in our lives are a function of what we've attracted to us. Now, does that mean we would attract everything to us that has happened? No. I mean, other people have agency, right? Things happen in the world. And at that point, it becomes how we orient to it, right? Joe Dispenza says, are you living your life? Are you creating your future from your present past or from your present future that you're creating, that you're calling forth? And that's a really good question, because we've been trained as part of the paradigm, and this is just across the board, to say, well, would you look at that? That's why I can't do that. That's what our sales were last month. How could I possibly quadruple that? I've never done that before. We've been trained, excuse me, to live from the outside in and to justify what we think we can do based on what we've done. What you've done is a function of how you've been programmed. Period. End of story. And here's the good news. We now have the tools to completely reprogram ourselves with a starting point of one thing and one thing only. What do you want? What do you want? Not what you think you can do. That's a B type goal. Not what you feel comfortable doing. That's also probably a B type goal or even an A goal. But what do you really, 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 really want? Blue sky. Because I think you gals had to go. We talked about this a little bit at the end of the call last night. I am convinced that we have no idea how our paradigms hold back even our biggest, wildest dream goal creation.
Could you say that again? It broke up.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me see. See if that's better. You know, Kathy?
But are you saying something? I can't hear anything. I can't hear you. Nothing. No, nothing. I can't. Nothing. I can't hear anything. Nothing.
I can hear you, Kathy.
Can you hear?
I
Can you
can.
hear-
I can hear you. Mhm.
Peggy?
Okay.
There she is.
There she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thumbs up. You can hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. Thank you. So the law of vibration is on page 15. And I want you to understand this. This is an immutable law. I love anybody else like to highlight their, I'm a big annotator on my books. I want you to find this. For the purpose of this lesson, we will focus on one law, the law of vibration. The law of vibration decrees that nothing rests, everything is in a constant state of movement. Your physical body is a mass of molecules in a high state of vibration. It is moving so fast it appears to be still. The truth is, it is casting off and recreating millions of cells per second. Your body vibrates so fast it glows. So you're always in a state of vibration that's pushing something out. It can be positive, it can be a high vibe, it can be optimistic, it can be in love, it can be accepting, it can be compassionate of ourselves and others by way of example, or it can be grumpy, frustrated, impatient. And I'm not judging any of this, by the way. Neither is, like better than the other. Certain vibrations will produce different results. But the key goal here is that whatever your body is vibrating at, you are calling in. There is no getting around that. You can, and this is why positive thinking does not work, by and large, the way most people understand it. Most people think, well, I'll just go around on a game face, not being honest with myself about what I want and how to get it. Most people don't know. Most people aren't fortunate like we are, right? We took the red pill. We know. We know better. When you know better, the chicken can't go back in the egg. So the deal is this, that the law of vibration is immutable. All of these universal metaphysical laws are immutable. You can disagree with them. It's like gravity. You can say, I don't agree with gravity. It's unfair. It hurts small children because they're unaware of it. It's a bad deal. It does not care at all. That's why kids are so hurt by it, because they haven't understood the concept of if I, get up on a high place and lean over, gravity will handle it. So the law of vibration is one of those laws that you just can't get around, and you really want to understand it. And I want to go back to what I think is even a more primary law, and that is energy is. And if you want to really understand the laws, The Science of Getting Rich is one of the best books on the universal laws that I've ever read. And all of us have it. Bob used to give it to us. There's other laws that Raymond Hollowell taught on. And I can talk more about that when I get home. I have his book at home. But the big thing you want to understand, just to simplify it, is think of it this way. Energy is, if you think of the stick person, think of yourself as the stick person. Energy is, it's everywhere, right? God is everywhere. Everything's, it's all around us. And energy is neither good nor bad. It has no shape or form. The quantum physicists say that everything exists in a super state of possibility. That's what Joe Dispenza says. And the thing that turns that super state of possibility, that quantum field of energy, what transmutes that into physical reality is consciousness. Your thoughts on a conscious level, right? Which we get to choose. We get to choose our thoughts, nobody else. We're not always practiced at that, but that's the goal here, the game here, is to get so good at thinking only about what you want, regardless of anything up until this moment. It does not matter what you've done. It does not matter how you work. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I saw your hand up, Kathy. I'll answer your question in just a second. Hold on, hon. So this energy is flowing to and through us. It has no shape or form. Our intellectual factors, imagination, intuition, reason, will, perception, memory, gives it shape. It's the Lego fact. It's the Play-Doh factory, so to speak. Whatever you're thinking about, that's why Bob said, what you think about all day long, you become. That is the creative process. It is at work 24/7, whether you like it or not. We just haven't been educated about it. That's why we've been calling in things we don't want. So your conscious, your higher faculties, if you're consciously aware, you start to only think about what you want. And in so doing, you use one of those conscious faculties, your will, to hold that image. And that's why the image, the clearer the image, the better, right? Hold that image on the screen of your mind to the exclusion of all else. Your will isn't a brute force engineering deal. Your will is focus. Your will is single-mindedly being in the energy of, how can I achieve this goal? Asking for guidance, taking inspired action, right? Because when you get emotionally involved on a subconscious level, when you get excited about your goal, regardless how crazy it is, how out there it is, your body will do two things. Your body is an instrument of the mind. It will move into inspired action. You'll not know how to do it. Kathy doesn't know how to do Zoom, but she's dang well figuring it out.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's excited. She can help more people. She can have more work-life balance. It's going to help her achieve that goal. So she's doing the uncomfortable things because she knows she can do it, and she's going to do it. And it sets your body up in a vibrational harmony with the good you desire. I have a goal to serve 4 new clients a week with ease, joy, and grace, paid in full. Guess what? A friend of mine from Michigan that I'm not even that close to, that I almost never talk to, like once a year, sent me a referral to a gal, and I was just helping her. We had all so much in common, and she paid me in full, and she's a new client. Didn't see that coming, but I set the intention, and I got emotionally involved in it. So that's what we're talking about here, taking this pure, raw energy, funneling it through, Bob talks about that lavender funnel of energy, funneling it through our mind, which is fixed on an image of the goal achieved, and then getting emotionally involved in it, setting up a vibratory pattern of attraction. That's where the by me to through me, Laura, comes in. You can't work hard enough to make up for being out of vibrational alignment with your goal. You can try. That's where the hustle and the grind comes in. And that's a young person's game. That's by me, right? When you're in through me, you are completely aligned on a conscious subconscious, emotional, and physical level. It does not matter what's happening. It does not matter that the resources aren't there. It does not matter that people think you're straight out of your mind. Nothing matters but that magnificent obsession. So is this making sense? Is this helpful? Yeah. That's what they're talking about. That's what Bob and Earl are talking about in this. Kathy, I saw your hand up.
My question was, because I couldn't hear.
Hold on one second, Kathy.
When can you hear me?
Can you guys hear Kathy?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear Kathy, but there is
Oh,
some
shoot.
Wi-Fi, whatever, it's going in and out a little bit, but I can
Hold
hear.
on. Hold on. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
When you lean forward, Peggy, we lose you.
Let's try this again.
I had the same problem on the previous call.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hear you.
Kathy, can you talk again?
Can you hear me?
Shoot. Joni,
Yes.
you can hear
Yes.
Kathy? Okay.
Yes.
Try it again.
Testing
you
one,
hear-
two.
Keep talking.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when you lean forward, can you hear me?
Yes.
We lose you. There's a something or other. I don't know what it is.
Keep talking.
Okay. Okay. My question to you is, because I lost you. You
Okay.
said when you just have positive thinking, it doesn't work. And I wanted to hear what you said.
Yeah. So it does and it doesn't. But in the common parlance, let's assume you know that you go to your therapist or somebody and they say, you know, you need to have a better attitude. You need to be more positive about that. And you get past being annoyed by that. Right? You get past like, okay, fine, you're right. I am negative. And then you start to be like, okay, I'm positive. I'm, yay. And you're giving it the college try. But here's the thing. The negativity isn't coming from your conscious mind, so to speak. It's coming from the subconscious programming. You were probably raised in a negative environment. You picked that up genetically and environmentally from whatever, whomever, the dog, your parents, the environment. The use of the conscious mind is at its highest and best, not trying to override and force the paradigm, but in using those higher mental faculties. That's the genius in the conscious mind. But nobody's ever taught that. I didn't teach anybody about that at Harvard. Now, I didn't teach everything at Harvard and I didn't go to Harvard, but I went to Brown and I went to Wellesley, and nobody was teaching me or my kids about my higher mental faculties. They've all had really elite, academic educations. So the power of the conscious mind, when used correctly, let's say you have a negative paradigm and you say, you know what? I can only attract to me what I'm in harmony with. I feel like crap generally about life. Everything. I have one particular friend, love her to death, small doses. She's really hard to be around, right? Don't we all have that friend? Yeah. And so this is a gal I went to high school with. And it's like Eeyore. I resist calling her because every time I talk to her, it's like, oh, my job and this. And she's brilliant. She has an MBA. She has an advanced degree in chemical sciences and chemical engineering. So she's not an uneducated woman, but she has this negativity about her life and her body and her health. And needless to say, just like Eeyore, she has this like dark cloud following her around, and she can only attract to her negative things. Now, and believe me, one of my friends was the CEO of the company she worked for. He had her do like training, but it didn't stick because she didn't change her paradigm.
I got it.
She didn't use her conscious mind to say, you know what? I am literally programmed to see only the worst in things. And if I'm going to be a positive person, I'm going to have to create new thoughts on a conscious level, use my will to hold those on my subconscious mind, and behaviors that are in alignment with that positive attitude that I want. Because if I walk around with this crap attitude, guess what I'm going to attract? She's in that downward, as the first lesson we studied here, that downward vicious cycle. All she can attract is what's in harmony with her. So if you have someone who's negative or you're feeling negative, just slapping a positive face on that will help. But if you really want to get the traction, you're going to have to change the programming, the paradigm. So I'm so happy and grateful now that I see only the good in things. Spend time every day being grateful for what you do have. Spend time seeing the good in people. Spend time knowing that people's negative behaviors, their thoughts, the things you can't relate to, you're like, why do they, whatever, all that business is part of their programming. It has nothing to do with you. Right?
Yeah.
Is that helpful, Kathy?
Very, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. They have
And
to
it-
change paradigms
Exactly.
and do the work we're doing in order to reprogram that. I
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. And look, we're all, here's the other thing I think about this. I believe you can generally, Earl said, attitude is a choice.
Mhm.
And it's a choice to live from the inside out. It's a choice to build up a positive attitude. And I believe we can live. I have a friend, Rudy. Joni knows him. I mean, for whatever reason, the guy's just like, it's a good day for a good day. Like the guy is, is he problem free? No, he has a lot of paradigms. So he's doing this work with us, but he's just built to be positive, to see the good in things. I don't know. He's a man of faith. I don't know if it's his Christianity or his obviously it was his environment genetically and environmentally, but I believe we can build up a very positive attitude. It hits the fan. That's good. Right? The guy that Bob quoted, that's good. That's interesting. Someone starts talking trash about someone else, change the subject. That's, oh, that's interesting. Hey, beautiful suit you have on. Where'd you get that? Like you just do not let yourself go down the rabbit hole of negativity because in the end, what you vibrate at, regardless of what's triggering the vibration, the universe only speaks vibration. Write that down. One language only. It doesn't speak English, doesn't speak French, doesn't speak Portuguese. It speaks vibration. That's the other reason, a way of looking at positive thinking. If you're thinking positively on a conscious level, eventually it will seep down into your subconscious programming. But if that programming is so inbred into you to get triggered, to see the negativity, you'll be the plaything of outside sources, outside functions. So, what he's talking about here is the law of vibration, which is predicated on the law that energy is. And to take it a step further, and we can talk about this more, energy is always transmuting to and through and into form. Bob uses a really great example of water, right? I'm up here in Park City. It's a beautiful day. The sky is clear. But Sunday, when I drove over, some of this snow, some of this water from the Pacific, wherever it came from, transmuted into steam, into clouds, right? Different temperatures. The water gets affected by, different temperatures and different environmental factors. It transmutes into steam. It transmutes into clouds. And then eventually on Sunday, the sky opened up and it was snowing like a beast. But now the clouds have cleared. But this cycle of energy moving to and through form happens all the time. Trees, look at the beautiful trees. If you live in a 4-season area, the trees lose their leaves. But in the spring, that energy transmutes into form, into more growth, into more life. So this energy is constantly moving to and through us into form. If you're not getting the results you want, you have to look at the form that the energy is moving to and through. And that's what we're doing here. We're rewiring the thoughts on a conscious level and the feelings on a subconscious level, because that's what sets us up vibrationally. And it's also what moves your body into action. Okay. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Is this helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Joni, do you have any questions about any of this? No? Okay.
I was trying to unmute. Not at all. I was trying to remember this morning when I was listening to the lesson again before the 8
Yeah.
o'clock call. There were a couple of things that just like hit me like a ton of bricks. But one of the things that you said around the universe doesn't speak, whatever language it speaks, vibration, again, was just another writer downer. So I literally have taken like 5 pages of notes just this morning. There was something else you said this morning, and it was not on this call, but maybe it's just worth sharing with everyone. And you were talking about the woman who wanted to go to Paris, and Bob said,
Go.
yeah,
Bob said go.
Said, I don't have the money. And he said, no, that's not the truth. You just haven't made the decision. And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like thinking about South Africa and some other things. And just, it really like stopped me in my tracks. So, but
Yeah.
I digress. I'm listening and thank you.
No, but I mean, and here's the thing. And when I say I love all of you, I do, because I do. You're fabulous women, and I'm honored to be here with you. But I also see the courage it takes to really do this work, right? And to stick with it and to have persistence. Because our educational system says, read the book, remember the book, you're done. This is a very different way of looking at life in general and learning. And what we're doing is unlearning and relearning and unlearning and relearning. And it's with the constant spaced repetition and the constant study that the awareness keeps growing. You know, Bob used to say, when you read a good book the 5th, 6th, 20th time, which makes no sense. But people used to say to Bob, why are you reading Think and Grow Rich again? He's like, at that point, he didn't even know. It was just because Ray Stanford told him to do it. He was unconsciously changing his paradigms. Aren't we lucky to have the benefit of have a cognitive metacognition, a consciousness of what we're doing, but we have to do that work to change the paradigm. So
there was something that I've said this before, probably 3 months ago, but it was something in lesson 1 of TIR where he says, every time I read this, I think that I'm reading something new in the material, and it's not. I'm seeing something new in myself.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I used to say to Dan, did they sneak that in last night? Like, because it was just such a mind-blowing moment. But that's what's so cool about this. And that's why Bob talks about the constant spaced repetition. It was that moment where he was standing in the Chicago O'Hare Hyatt, right? Listening to Bill Gove. And he'd been listening to this program that we're studying over and over again on those, Kathy's been in his house and those little 45 records on his little record player in his car. The guy was obsessed with it. I invite you to be obsessed with this. Always thinking about, how can this help me achieve my goals? How can this help me be more of who I am? How can this help me be more of a contribution to this world? Because when you ask, he said, study with a purpose. I asked him that point blank. Wild story. But anyway, I found myself in this room at one of the coaching consultants programs, and my friend and I, they called our names. It was a very small group. I'm like, why are we here? And one of the consultants was kind of being bitchy, and she was like, well, I don't think you belong here. And my friend is from Texas, was like, sit down. And so I was like, yes. So anyway, I asked him, he said, do you have any questions? And I said, Bob, my clients want to know why we have to study this over and over again. And he told me that story about the O'Hare Hyatt and Bill Gove. But he said, always start with a purpose. Have your goal there. And this is so important. How can this, what I'm about to study, raise my awareness, help me see something I haven't seen before? Because our conscious minds and our paradigms are like, I've heard this story 8 million times. Well, if you're not getting the results you want, you haven't heard it enough. You got a knowing doing gap, and it's in your paradigm. So, at that moment at the O'Hare Hyatt, I know it well because I've flown in Chicago so many times. he heard Bill Gove speaking at the front of the room, and he said Bill had people in the palm of his hand. And here's Bob. If you've ever seen pictures of Bob 50 years ago when he was with Earl and Lloyd, skinny guy, tall, gangly, skinny, shy guy, right? He said, gosh, if only I could do that. That was his desire. That was his heart. That was his inner spirit saying, I want to help people with this material. And if I could stand up, it's going to make me cry. If I could stand up there like Bill Gove, I could help so many people. And then the parrot, what happens next? Desire, dream, goal, right? Saw himself standing up there helping people. And guess what then happened? Paradigm, immediately. Who do you think you are? You can barely talk in a meeting. You're this tall, gangly guy who would listen to you. You don't even know what to say. You'd probably freeze up, throw up, faint, all of the things. Everybody's programmed, public speaking is second only to death, right? For those of us who aren't well versed in it. And in that moment, because he had listened to this lesson 1, actually, attitude, in that moment, his subconscious mind kicked in and said, wait a minute. And his conscious mind, like the whole mechanism was working in a new way. And he questioned his paradigm and he said, wait a minute. That's what Nightingale means. Here we come to the strangest thing. We overestimate what other people can do and we underestimate what we can do. And in that moment, because of that continual constant spaced repetition, it wasn't like he had, like, I'm talking to your point about the aha moments, Joni. It wasn't like he was like, wait a minute, where was that in lesson 1? He wasn't cognitively thinking of it. It had just been so programmed into him that in that moment when he needed it, his inner being had it right there. He said, wait a minute. That's what Nightingale's talking about. If Gove can do it, Proctor can do it. If Earl can do it, I can do it. I can do anything I can see anybody else doing. And he went so far as to say, even if you've never seen anybody else doing it, the Wright brothers didn't see airplanes flying around. That did not make them quit. They held that dream they built it in their imaginations and they embedded it in their subconscious programming to the point that everything they needed was attracted to them, that they were able to do it, that they didn't stop until they did it. So in that moment, Bob made a decision based on a new belief, on a new perception. If Gove can do it, Proctor can do it. If Nightingale can do it, that's what Earl was talking about. I'm going to make that decision come hell or high water. I'm going to be on a stage talking to people like that. And not only that, I'm going to get Gove to teach me how he does it. And he did. And he said he paid Gove a respectable amount of money. And I believe that. It was probably money he didn't have. But he was so bent on learning how to speak because he knew he could help millions of people. And guess what? He did. So that's the importance of this material. Finding new ways to look at it, finding new ways to look at yourself, asking yourself, how can I use this? Do I really understand the law of vibration? Do I understand that if I'm feeling in a low vibration, it means I'm cognitively involved or probably subconsciously involved in some kind of negative thing regarding my goal? And I think we can improve our attitude and our positivity in all areas of our life. I think we can do it. What I wanted to say is, like I think of my friend Rudy, generally his disposition is positivity. But you may be positive about your family, but less positive about your finances. Positive about your body, but less positive about your relationships. Do you know what I mean? So you have paradigms that have you believing, perceiving things that by and large aren't true if you're not getting the results you want. And those are the places to look. Where am I in a low vibration? Where am I in fear, worry, and doubt? Because that's a rapid fire way to get yourself into a low vibration. Okay. So as we keep going through here, I think the image on page 16, where the stick person is so important. This is the law of attraction explained in a visual format. the image that you have of anything, but let's, for the sake of this discussion, say it's your goal. Using your will, setting aside time every day to visualize it, to feel it, to let yourself get emotionally involved in it. I'm working with somebody who wants to manifest expanding the family cottage that her family owns on Lake Michigan. And I said, well, what are some of the images of what you'd love to see? And she has this image of a beautiful breakfast buffet and all the family there. I'm like, great, write that down. Get emotionally involved in it. Right? Give the texture, what does it feel like? What does it smell like? Get involved in that. Because what's happening now is your senses are being used to dial into what is. We have to use our senses, our imagination to smell the fresh bread, right? You can use your imagination to bring yourself to a place like that. It might take practice. In this lesson, they talk about your imagination being a muscle, right? A mental muscles. I had one gal say to me, I think my want meter is broken. I'm like, no, it's just underutilized, right? Or it's being smothered by your limiting beliefs. Probably both. But as we continue to do this, it gets easier and easier. And what's cool is this creates a feedback loop. You have an image of your goal, you get emotionally involved in it. You're so grateful. It's here, it's happening. You can feel it. And then it sends out a vibration that attracts to you what you need. Remember how Bob said you won't have everything you need, but it'll show up right when you need it. Just keep holding the faith and holding the image and holding the feeling. And it moves your body out into inspired action. Right? Now, your paradigm is still going to kick back on the inspired action. You're still going to be hitting the terror barrier. I'm not saying that ever fully goes away, but you know what you're dealing with. Okay. And so when you're in that feeling of the goal achieved, you're in alignment with the ideas, with the feelings, with the people, with the thoughts. Everything starts to come to you in a really beautiful way. And when you see that and you take note of it, I called that in. That feeds and reinforces, and it creates a virtuous upward cycle. Okay. So if necessary, I'm going to keep this on my desk where I can see it, because if I'm getting a result that I don't want, I can reverse engineer the thing from the bottom up to the top. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, we talked a bit about this last night. Am I willing? You're going to have to make space and let go of lower value things to have higher value things in your life. I am going to have to give up certain things to be able to sleep more, not more, but to have better sleep habits so I can get up earlier to get my workouts in. That's the new paradigm. So I'm doing that right now. Last night was my first night. I have a new sleep routine and I have a new workout routine. And I'm doing those things until that's pretty solid. And then I'm also adding more water. I'll add in my supplements. I'll add in the nutrition, but I'm not changing it all at once. I'm doing two things. And when I get those two things spinning, next week I'll add in the water and the nutrition and the supplements, right? So those are the inspired actions. I was like, wait a minute, I'm gonna have to give up some money and some thinking I know how to do this and get a coach to help me. I don't have to, but I'm compressing time by doing that. So that's what you have to think about here. And, on page 19, we talked about this a little bit last night, and then I'll just open up the floor. We're either living from the inside out or the outside in, right? Your thoughts are either generating and setting the path that you're on, or your circumstances are setting the path that you're on. And your circumstances are being produced by your paradigms, and it's probably it's obviously in your subconscious and you're not aware of it. So this is about getting clear on your goal, having it be something you would love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And holding fast to it and getting emotionally involved in it. And then stepping out and taking inspired action. But I love that the law of attraction is out. This is not a universe of assertion. You can't force what you want upon the universe. You can attract it, and you are attracting it, and you will attract it. And the question is, are you focused on the one thing and the one thing only, what you want? Now, does this mean your paradigms are just going to go quietly into the night? No. And you're going to have to step out and take action on that. But this lesson, to me, is amazing because it's called a worthy destination. And Bob said, and I remember this clear as day, don't pick goals that you think you're worthy of. Pick goals that are worthy of you. You're God's highest creation. You can do anything. You have a dream in your heart. You have purpose. You have a vision. Pick the goals, not that you think you can do, not that somebody else wants you to do, not that you think fits well in society or because you'll make money doing it. You'll make money doing things that you love to do, that are serving other people, that is in alignment with who you are. And at that point, you will attract, I mean, guys, I can tell you stories. I mean, Dan and I have taken a step back. We've reevaluated our goals. We're rethinking them. And literally, after a discussion yesterday morning about certain marketing approaches and things I'm doing with my business, the business development program goal, the business development program I'm in, the woman that's leading it started talking exactly about things that I was thinking about. And I sat back afterward and I thought, isn't that interesting? And I thought, wait a minute, where's the gratitude? I called that in. Either I called it in or she was planning on it and I hooked up with it. It doesn't really matter. But the point was it was in alignment because I was noticing what was out of alignment. Right. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, no, exactly when I needed it, boom, it showed up. And I think one thing that we need to think about is becoming better observers of when the positive things start to show up, not being like, oh my gosh, is, out of nowhere. No, nothing's never, ever out of nowhere. Ever. That's easier to swallow when it's, yay, I wanted this thing and it showed up. It's not so good when it's like, boo, these are circumstances I don't love. Again, we can't control everything, but we can control our orientation to it. And whether we're going to keep attracting more of the same to us. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Do you ladies have any questions about this lesson or anything we've studied so far? Attitude, greener pastures, or a worthy destination? Kathy.
I have an interesting observation and I want to see if you think it's true.
Sure.
Happened 2 days ago.
Yeah.
The manager of this little club that I go to, he's kind of negative. And
that's his paradigm, right?
That's his paradigm.
Yep.
And I'm chairman of nominating, and I chose 2 people that I thought could do the job. And I was telling, I chose them, and he put them both down. And they have negative tendencies too. So I kind of thought negative people put negative people down in a way. Sense?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly. Yeah. I don't know exactly, well, think about it this way. If he's living on a competitive plane versus a creative plane, remember what Waddle says.
Right.
Live on a creative plane, because if you're competing with other people, then you are not hooked up to the source of all that is. Right. You would never compete with somebody else when you knew you would only be a second imitation of that person versus connecting up and being the most magnificent version of yourself. So his deal is probably job protection, covering his, that's his deal. He doesn't see it the way you see it. So the thing that helps me understand people, because I've always had a keen fascination of why people behave the way they do.
I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah, is because that's how they're programmed to live.
Yeah.
And until and when they until and when they want to change, like you have to want to change. It's the horse to water deal, right? That's why coaching people who don't ask for coaching or are uncoachable is a problem.
Yeah.
That's a headbanger. People have to have hit a point in their life where they said, this I cannot tolerate anymore. And the second thing is they have to be willing to do the work, because as you can see, the material's all here. If God forbid something happened to me, if you dedicated your life to studying this, thinking into results and this program, among other things, and did what you were told to do in here, you can have anything you want. Bob wasn't kidding in this lesson when Earl said to him, tell me what you want and I'll show you how to get it. You can literally have anything you desire, but you're going to have to change your paradigms. You're going to have to live in alignment, in harmony with the universal laws.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. I mean,
I think
it's not
when-
easy. I will say this, it's not easy, but it's in the end, if you have a roadmap, it's easier and you're willing to do the work, right? Sorry, Kathy,
Right.
I interrupted. What were you going to say?
I think when you find people that have a lot of judgment about people and
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm.
I've learned you've got to be wary of them. It's not who I want to hang out, you know?
Well, look, Bob said this. He didn't have a lot of friends. And I don't believe that's true. I think people were more than happy to be Bob's friend. People always wanted something from Bob. But here's the deal. There are people in our lives that, our family, for example. That is a good place to exercise your ability to stay in charge of yourself.
Mhm.
Right? You and I have talked about this with your extended family. Then there's people in your life that you're friends with, and you get to choose your friends. And part of personal growth, and I saw this someplace else, is that you will raise your vibration. You'll raise what you talk about. I've experienced this with some friends out east. They have not embraced this work, and I don't judge them for that. But they have their paradigms, and part of it happens to be judgment and talking about other people and, making themselves feel better by cutting other people down. And I'm like, no. So as Bob used to say, I control how I see them, where I see them, when I see them, and it's in small doses.
Mhm.
Because I do value the friendship, but it's not my full diet of people that I converse with, because I get to choose how I spend my time, and I don't want to spend my time in that
agree.
vibration in that conversation. That's hard, because part of our paradigm, I think, especially as women, is, well, we've been friends for 50 years. So, you can pick your friends, you can't pick your family. Well, some people say you do, but that aside, you know what I'm saying, Kathy? So, when people are unpleasant, I have compassion for them, because they're attracting things to them that are very unpleasant. And if somebody's cutting me down, I mean, Earl said that in lesson 1. If someone has a negative attitude towards you, they have a very negative attitude toward themselves. And the way they make themselves feel better is to export that.
Yes.
The question you get to answer is, am I going to tolerate that?
Right.
Because we always have a choice. It doesn't feel like it, because, I couldn't end that relationship for whatever paradigm reason. I could not be friends with that person or spend time with them. Well, then keep spending time with them, but don't resent them, because you're the one making the choice to be in their presence, to experience that energy. And that's just a hard truth about personal growth too. I've had this conversation.
All paradigms and everything
Mhm.
that it's so fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So anyway, Joni, or I know Laura's not feeling well. Laura, I hope you feel better.
Me too.
Yeah. Joni, I hope you feel better.
Thank you. I will.
But
have-
any
Um,
questions about this?
there was one, it's not really a question. I guess I'm kind of throwing it out there because I'm contemplating it myself.
Mhm.
We talked about knowing what you want and why you want it, but the how is none of your business.
Mhm.
I was listening to the story and reading the material about the analogy of the captain of the ship.
Mhm.
And so I guess again, I'm kind of contemplating what's the difference between the how is none of your business, but yet the captain of the ship knows precisely where he or she is going.
Right. Well, I think if you go to page 9, and I'll paraphrase this. First of all, he says, see yourself already in possession of whatever it is you want. The clearer that is, the easier it will be. Okay. To get into the feeling of it. Neville Goddard wrote that book, Feeling is the Secret, right? If we only keep it on an intellectual level, it doesn't go anywhere. We have to get emotionally involved and step through the terror barrier physically. We have to step out and take action. That's going to make us a little shaky, potentially. But when you are fantasizing, when you are in the goal creation process, do not give one speck of mental energy to how this goal is going to be accomplished. I have that underlined, and I wrote in the margin, limiting beliefs / paradigm. That sucker will fly up faster than you can, say Mississippi. The minute you contemplate something, all the things that are telling you can't do it will surface. Count on it. It's a mechanism. It's like when you hit the go on the washing machine, it starts. When you set a big C-type goal that you don't know how to do because we've been programmed to know how to do things before we do it, go to Paris when you have the money type business, you can take that to the bank. You set a big C-type goal. When Sandy said she was going to work with Bob, all hell broke loose inside of her for a year. But she got herself through it by getting more and more emotionally involved in it, the impact she would have, the fun she would have, the life she would be able to live, right? So when you're fantasizing, know how, not know how. You don't know, the how doesn't give any consideration to that, right? But where the money will come from, the time, the assistance, attempting to think of how will either limit or destroy the fantasy. That right there, that's 98% of the population. I've stopped talking to people. I've always so helpful. Hey, you could do this, you could do that, blah, blah, blah. Jonah can tell you. I'm a real helper. I don't say that to anybody anymore. I think it because I can see their infinite potential. But if they haven't met 2 criteria, if they're not asking me for my help and they're not paying me money, I by and large don't give people advice anymore. Because immediately their paradigm has a throwdown with me. And why? Why would I go there? You work on your own self. Okay. That's what I say to myself. So attempting to think of the how will either limit or destroy the fantasy. Yes. Yeah, it's right here where most people ruin their chance for great accomplishment. How it is going to manifest is not your responsibility. What and why? What do I want and why do I want it? That will lead you into the path of getting emotionally involved in it. The only important point for you to consider when you are fantasizing is that you can see clearly and in detail on the screen of your mind yourself already in possession of the good you desire. So it's not to say organized planning doesn't come into play. It does, but it's from a place of emotional, locked up tight connection to your C-type goal. Then you step out. You already know how to do your C-type goal. Your terror barrier is probably pulling you back from it. If you don't know, there's the internet. Somebody knows. Somebody somewhere knows how to do everything. And even if they don't, you'll be able to tap into source and figure it out. So it's a process where the what and the why, what you love, why you love it, the image and the emotional involvement, that's got to be that plate. You want to get that sucker spinning as fast as you can and as stable as possible. Then from that place of decision, this I will do. No idea how it's going to happen. Do you think when Bob held up that pen on Glenwood Drive in Chicago, Illinois, and said, I'm going to start a business that's going to operate all over the world, cell phones had not been invented. The internet had not been invented. Television was in its infancy. He had no idea. He knew that what it was and why he was doing it. Do you see You see how this works here? Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yep, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
So it's a process, and we'll talk more about that next week. But next week, we're moving on to lesson 4. And as always, if you guys have any questions, need help, whatever, reach out, post it in the WhatsApp chat, but keep going. Everything's in here, and take it to heart and have it stimulate thinking on your part, because we're going to have to build time into the day. And we'll talk about this next week, to think. It's not just enough to study this. You have to start thinking. You have to set aside time to fantasize. You have to set aside time to theorize. You have to set aside time to do organized planning. There's a whole chapter in Think and Grow Rich on organized planning, or else you don't complete the creative process. Right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. So good to see you guys. Yeah, Kathy.
You're gonna let us know when we could do a one-on-one with you next week?
Yes, exactly. I'll set up,
Great.
I'll open up times. I'll reach out to you guys and we'll connect and make sure your goal's clear, answer any questions you have, see where you are in the creation process, etc. Okay?
We missed you, Lisa and Laura. Hope you feel better.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
bye-bye. Talk to you soon. Bye,
Okay,
friends.
bye.